His heart rate spiked from 68 to 142 beats per minute while he was asleep. His Fitbit logged the surge at 2:14 a.m. No movement, no nightmare, just his body entering full threat response while his mind remained unconscious. The audio analysis revealed why. Subsonic frequency spike, below the threshold of human hearing, but not below the threshold of human perception. His chest tightened 3 minutes before he heard the breathing. Nausea hit in waves, overwhelming dread with no identifiable source. His body knew something massive was standing outside his tent before his ears registered a single sound. The camper was alone for 72 hours in verified wilderness, nearest human 14 miles away, military training. 15 years of backcountry experience. He was 14 miles from the nearest road. No cell service. Just the sound of his own pulse and the realization that if something went wrong, he was the only one who could save himself. The forest had stopped being a sanctuary and had become a cage. By morning, he'd understand why his body reacted to a weapon he couldn't hear, and why the creature that used it stood 6 inches from his head for 11 minutes without making a single mistake. October 2023, remote section of Monongahela National Forest, West Virginia. A 15-year backcountry veteran sets up camp in a location documented by GPS coordinates, military training. Solo camping experience spanning over a decade. He carries audio recorders specifically for wildlife documentation. This isn't some weekend hiker with a cell phone camera. This is someone who knows the difference between a black bear's huff and an elk's bugle at 300 yards in total darkness. The first 2 nights were uneventful. Standard forest sounds, owls calling from the ridgeline, distant coyotes working through their territorial songs, wind pushing through the canopy above his tent. He documented everything in his journal with timestamps, normal patterns, predictable wilderness, night 3, 11:47 p.m. His journal entry reads, "Woods went dead quiet, not even insects." He didn't know it yet, but the silence wasn't just a lack of sound. It was a countdown. The entire forest had just identified a predator that hadn't even arrived yet. The Oz effect. Total auditory void. Every experienced outdoorsman knows this feeling. The forest doesn't go silent naturally. Silence means something big enough to command respect has entered the area. Prey animals freeze. Predators pause. The entire ecosystem holds its breath. The Oz effect is unmistakable once you've felt it. Have you ever been in the woods when the sound just stops? Tell me where you were when it happened. He stayed awake, listening, waiting for whatever had triggered the silence to move through and restore the normal soundscape. It didn't. The evidence stack is what separates this case from countless campfire stories. 4 separate audio clips recorded on a wildlife-grade digital recorder. Tent fabric impressions photographed at first light with measurement references. 18-inch footprint casts made in soft soil. Witness interview conducted 48 hours post-event while details remained sharp. He didn't panic and run. He documented. He preserved the scene. He treated it like the investigation it deserved to be. The evidence stack is what separates this case from countless campfire stories. If you value investigations that prioritize data over drama, make sure you're subscribed to BigfootED. We're building a database of encounters that the mainstream refuses to touch. His recorder was clipped to the tent peak. Standard placement for capturing ambient forest sounds without wind interference. The microphone faced outward. It could pick up sounds from every direction. It was high-quality gear made to record everything from tiny bat squeaks to deep rolling thunder. At 2:14 a.m., it captured something that shouldn't exist. The audio analysis would later reveal details invisible to the naked ear. Frequency ranges that bypass conscious hearing and vibrate directly into your chest cavity. Patterns that suggest intelligence, control, decision-making. But in that moment, lying in his sleeping bag with his body in full threat response, he only knew one thing. Something massive was standing right outside his tent, and it was breathing, not panting, not snorting, not the rapid, shallow gasps of an animal in distress or exertion. Deep inhalation, pause, controlled exhalation, the rhythm of something at rest, something patient, something waiting. His body understood the threat before his conscious mind could process what was happening, resting baseline to extreme stress response in under 10 seconds. He made a choice in that moment, a choice that likely saved his life. He stayed perfectly still. His brain was screaming at his hand to reach for the bear spray, but his muscles felt like they'd been turned to lead. It's a terrifying kind of betrayal when your own body decides that the safest thing you can do is play dead while your heart is hammering against your ribs. For 11 minutes, he didn't move, didn't shift his weight, didn't reach for the flashlight clipped to the tent wall 3 inches from his hand. He controlled his breathing, matched the slow rhythm to mimic deep sleep, playing dead while awake, because the breathing wasn't the only thing his recorder picked up. The audio playback begins at 2:14 a.m. and 33 seconds, 6 minutes after total forest silence descended on his campsite. When he played it back later, he expected to hear a bear, maybe an elk investigating his gear. But the waveform showed something that defied the laws of biology, something that shouldn't be able to breathe that slowly while standing upright. The first inhalation lasts 4.2 seconds, deep, controlled, drawing air with the capacity of lungs far larger than any human possesses. Pause, 1.8 seconds. Complete stillness, exhalation, 5.1 seconds. Steady release, no tremor, no irregularity. The breathing pattern of something completely at ease. This rhythm repeats, over and over, too slow for distress, too controlled for exertion. This isn't an animal that just ran 3 miles through dense forest. This is something that walked up to his tent and stopped, decided to stay. His military training had drilled one lesson into him during countless night operations. Every living thing has a sound signature. Rabbits freeze and hold their breath in short bursts. Deer exhale in quick, nervous huffs when they detect movement. Humans can't control their breathing rhythm under stress, no matter how hard they try. He'd spent hundreds of hours in the field learning to identify threats by respiration alone. He knew what belonged in the woods and what didn't. This didn't belong. Bear huffing follows a completely different pattern. Black bears cycle their breath every 2 to 3 seconds when investigating something unfamiliar. Sharp inhalations followed by audible snorting. They blow air through their nostrils to clear scent passages and gather more information. The audio signature is unmistakable, nasal, wet, rapid. This breathing has none of those characteristics. Elk produce a snort wheeze during rutting season, high-pitched whistle on the inhale, forceful expulsion on the exhale. The sound carries for hundreds of yards and serves as both challenge and location beacon. Any hunter who's spent time in elk country knows that sound instantly. This has no whistle, no nasal component whatsoever. I want to hear from the hunters and trackers watching this. Based on that respiratory rhythm, is there any known North American predator that matches this signature? Or are we looking at something else entirely? The audio waveform analysis reveals something even more disturbing than the breathing pattern itself. The source location. Digital forensics can calculate distance based on amplitude, frequency roll-off, and environmental acoustics. The microphone was clipped to the tent peak, 4 feet above ground level. The breathing source registers within 2 to 3 feet of that microphone. Something was standing directly over his tent, close enough that the recorder picked up every detail of respiratory function, close enough that if the tent fabric hadn't been there, he could have reached up and touched it. His testimony fills in what the audio cannot capture. I woke to pressure on my chest. Not touch, not weight, just pressure. Like something massive was displacing the air right above me. The tent fabric wasn't touching my face, but I could feel the space being occupied, compressed, heavy. His wearable device confirms the extreme physiological response. Blood oxygen levels dropped slightly as his breathing became shallow. His body entered full threat response while he forced himself to remain motionless. 11 minutes, 660 seconds. He didn't move, didn't adjust his position, didn't reach for the bear spray velcroed to the tent wall. Primal fear overrode every tactical instinct his military training had drilled into him. Fight or flight collapsed into a third option. Freeze, become invisible. Pray, it loses interest. The breathing continued, steady, patient, unbroken rhythm suggesting complete control over respiratory function. This wasn't labored breathing from climbing the ridgeline to reach his campsite. This was the breathing of something that could stand there all night if it chose to. But the breathing wasn't the only thing his recorder captured during those 11 minutes. At 2:26 a.m., the pattern shifted. The rhythm remained the same, but the audio picked up something new: fabric rustling, the distinct sound of nylon being displaced by pressure. The tent wall near his head began to move inward, the chest pressure he described, the nausea that hit him in waves, the overwhelming sense of being watched that preceded any conscious awareness of the breathing. His body knew something was wrong before his mind could identify the threat. His audio recorder captured more than just breathing. The spectrogram analysis reveals a 12 Hz frequency spike, coinciding with each exhalation, 15 decibels above the ambient baseline, sustained for the entire 11-minute period. 12 Hz. That number matters. Infrasound, sound waves below 20 Hz, below the threshold of conscious human hearing, but not below the threshold of human perception. You don't hear these sounds with your ears. Instead, your whole body feels them. They shake your heart, your lungs, and your stomach from the inside out. His Fitbit confirms exactly when the exposure began. 2:11 a.m. Heart rate spiked from 68 to 94 beats per minute, 3 minutes before he consciously registered the breathing. His body detected the threat before his brain could process what was happening. Studies on infrasound exposure at 6 to 16 Hertz document the symptoms: chest pressure, difficulty breathing, nausea, anxiety that seems to come from nowhere. At 10 decibels above baseline, 22% of exposed populations report significant discomfort. His exposure measured 15 decibels above ambient for 11 minutes straight. His testimony describes the exact symptoms the research predicts. Pressure on my chest, not touch, not weight, just pressure, like something massive was displacing the air right above me. I felt sick, waves of nausea, and this overwhelming certainty that I was in danger even though I couldn't see anything wrong. Blood pressure changes, increased heart rate, impaired alertness. The body enters fight or flight mode without conscious input. His autonomic nervous system took over while his conscious mind struggled to understand why. If you've ever felt that sudden, crushing weight on your chest in the wilderness, drop a yes in the comments. We're tracking how many of these encounters involve biological infrasound, and your data point matters. Natural sources were systematically ruled out. Seismic monitoring stations within 50 miles showed no earthquake activity that night. Wind speed data from the nearest weather station logged 3-mile-per-hour gusts, nowhere near the velocity required to generate infrasound through terrain features. No machinery within 40 miles. No roads, no power lines, no industrial activity of any kind. The infrasound was biological in origin, generated by something with lung capacity large enough to produce subsonic frequencies through controlled exhalation. Elephants do this. They communicate across miles using infrasound below 20 Hz. Tigers produce infrasound in their roars that can paralyze prey before physical contact. Large predators have evolved to weaponize frequencies that bypass conscious awareness and trigger instinctive fear responses. His body registered the weapon 3 minutes before the attack began. By 2:14 a.m., when the breathing started, his heart rate had climbed to 142 beats per minute, full threat response. His blood oxygen levels dropped as his breathing became shallow, every physiological marker screaming danger while he forced himself to remain motionless. I couldn't move, couldn't. My body refused. Every cell was screaming danger before my brain caught up. I wanted to grab the bear spray. I wanted to unzip the tent and run, but my muscles wouldn't respond. It was like being locked inside my own body while something else made the decisions. Paralysis without physical contact. Terror without visible threat. His autonomic nervous system made the choice for him. Stay still, don't draw attention, survive by becoming invisible. If something with massive lung capacity exhales in a controlled pattern, the physics support infrasound generation. The strategic advantage is obvious. Freeze your target before you reveal your position. Trigger paralysis through biology rather than physical intimidation. The infrasound hypothesis explains the Oz effect as well. Total forest silence 3 hours before the creature arrived at his tent. If it was generating subsonic frequencies while moving through the forest, every animal within range would have felt that pressure, that cellular level warning. They went silent and stayed silent until the threat passed. But infrasound alone doesn't explain what happened at 2:26 a.m. When the breathing pattern remained steady, but the tent fabric began to move. When the invisible threat became tangible. When the barrier between him and whatever was standing outside became measured in millimeters of nylon instead of feet of empty air. The audio captures the exact moment. Fabric rustling, nylon stretching under pressure. The mesh wall near his head depressing inward 4 to 6 inches. Held there for 8 seconds. Something was touching his tent. And the hand that made contact wasn't human. Be honest, if you saw a hand that size pressing into your tent mesh 3 inches from your face, what's your move? Do you grab the bear spray or do you stay perfectly still? I'll be reading your responses to see who has the freeze instinct. The audio captures fabric rustling at 2:26 a.m. Not wind, not his own movement inside the sleeping bag. External pressure against the tent wall. He watched the mesh depress inward. 4 to 6 inches of displacement near his head. The fabric held that position for 8 seconds. Not a brush, not an accidental contact. Deliberate pressure, sustained, controlled. Then release. The mesh wall returned to its normal position. The breathing continued without interruption. Same rhythm. Same 4.2-second inhalation. Same 1.8-second pause. Same 5.1-second exhalation. Whatever touched his tent didn't lose balance, didn't stumble against the fabric. This was intentional investigation. Morning inspection revealed the evidence. A hand-shaped impression in the rainfly, 11 inches wide at the palm, 4 distinct finger depressions radiating outward from the center point. The fabric showed stress marks where it had been stretched beyond normal tension, 11 inches. The average adult male hand spans 7.4 inches from thumb to pinky when fully extended. Grizzly bear paw pads measure 5 to 7 inches across, with visible claw marks extending beyond the pad. This print showed neither human proportions nor claw marks. The finger depressions suggested length, 9 to 11 inches per digit based on the pressure distribution pattern. Long enough to wrap around a human skull with room to spare. Scale comparison using known reference points. His tent stood 4 feet tall at the peak. The hand impression appeared at 3 feet 8 inches above ground level, comfortable reaching height for something standing upright. Not a bear on all fours pressing its face against the fabric. Not a bear reared up on hind legs, swatting at unfamiliar objects. A hand, placed deliberately, feeling the barrier, testing what separated it from the human inside. The smell hit him during those 8 seconds of contact. His testimony describes it in visceral detail. Wet dog mixed with rotting leaves and something metallic, like old pennies left in standing water. So strong it burned my nose even through the tent fabric. Not skunk, not bear musk, something else, something I'd never smelled before and haven't smelled since. It wasn't just a bad smell, it was an invasive one. It filled the small space of the tent, coating the back of his throat with a metallic tang that tasted like fear. It was the smell of something ancient and predatory, standing inches from his face. Wet fur produces a distinct odor. All animals have natural oils on their skin to stay dry. When fur gets wet, those oils mix with dirt and germs to create that heavy, wet dog smell. The result is immediately recognizable to anyone who's been near a wet dog. But the metallic component changes everything. That specific combination, wet fur plus metallic, appears in territorial marking behavior across multiple primate species. Gorillas and chimps produce iron-rich secretions from specialized glands when claiming territory or establishing dominance. The scent serves as a chemical signature, a warning to competitors, a catalog entry for future reference. The metallic note also appears during stress-induced hormone surges. Adrenaline and cortisol alter sebaceous secretions enough to produce that penny-like smell. But this creature wasn't stressed. Its breathing remained controlled. Its movements were deliberate. This wasn't fight or flight chemistry. This was intentional marking. It wasn't just investigating his tent. It was claiming the campsite, leaving its scent signature on the fabric, cataloging his location, his smell, his vulnerability. The creature was essentially saying, "I know you're here. I've recorded this place, and I can come back anytime I choose." That realization is what separated his experience from a simple animal encounter. Bears investigate campsites and move on. They don't mark territory around active human presence. They avoid confrontation when possible. This creature did the opposite. It claimed the space while he was still in it. The breathing pattern shifted after the hand contact. The 4.2-second inhalations shortened to 2-second cycles, faster rhythm. The audio analysis shows the microphone position changing relative to the breathing source, movement. The head was no longer stationary above the tent peak. It was circling, moving around the tent perimeter. The breathing came from different angles over the next 6 minutes. North side, east side, south side. Methodical investigation of the entire structure. He tracked the movement through sound alone. Eyes open in complete darkness, following the breathing as it moved clockwise around his shelter. Each position held for 30 to 40 seconds before shifting to the next point. Not random wandering. Systematic examination, learning the tent layout, identifying entry points, understanding the structure's vulnerabilities. Tent design creates psychological warfare. Thin fabric walls, mesh windows, zippers that sound like gunshots in the silence. You're visible through the mesh if anything outside has eyes adapted to darkness. You're exposed, vulnerable, the illusion of shelter without actual protection. He understood this. 15 years of backcountry experience, military training that emphasized threat assessment and tactical positioning. He knew the tent offered zero defense against something strong enough to tear through nylon like tissue paper. His survival depended on a single strategy: remain motionless, control his breathing, avoid eye contact, even through the mesh. Don't give it a reason to escalate from investigation to aggression, playing dead while every instinct screamed to run, to grab the bear spray, to make noise and scare it away like you would with a black bear. But this wasn't a black bear. And some part of his brain understood that making himself a threat would be the last mistake he ever made. At 2:34 a.m., the breathing stopped circling. The audio captures 3 distinct heavy impacts, footfalls, receding into the forest. The final sound registers at 47 yards based on decibel fade analysis. The creature didn't just wander off. The tracks would later show a very specific, very chilling intent. It wasn't leaving because it was finished. It was leaving because it had seen exactly what it came for. He waited until 6:23 a.m., full daylight, then exited the tent to document what it left behind. Only then did he unzip the door and step outside, The trackway led from the tree line to his tent, 4 clear prints in soft soil near the eastern side. Then the return path, heading uphill toward the ridgeline where the forest thickened into old-growth timber, 18 inches long, 8 inches wide at the ball of the foot, 5 distinct toe impressions. Put your own foot next to that for comparison. The largest human shoe size, a men's size 13, measures 12 inches. These prints exceeded that by 6 inches, half again as large as the biggest human foot you've ever seen. Now compare it to what actually lives in these woods. A full-grown male grizzly bear leaves hind tracks 7 to 9 inches long. The pad shows as an oval with 5 toes. And here's the critical detail: claw marks extending 1 to 2 inches beyond each toe. Bears can't retract their claws. Every track shows those marks. These prints showed no claw marks. The toes suggested something capable of gripping. The pronounced arch indicated bipedal design. This foot was built for walking upright, not the flat-footed shuffle of a bear reared up on hind legs. The stride length revealed something even more disturbing. 6 feet between prints, measured center to center. He paced it out 3 times to verify. Here's the math. Stride length correlates directly to leg length. A 6-foot stride means the legs were approximately 4 feet long. Add torso height, add head. The total calculation points to overall height between 8 and 9 feet tall. That explains the handprint. 3 feet 8 inches above ground level. Comfortable reaching height for something 8 to 9 feet tall. The creature didn't have to stretch or bend to touch his tent. It was just standing there, investigating at eye level. The approach pattern revealed tactical thinking. The tracks came from uphill, high ground advantage. The creature had positioned itself above the campsite before descending. It could observe without being observed. Plan the approach. Choose the optimal angle. The trackway circled the tent twice, visible in the disturbed leaf litter even where the soil was too hard to hold clear prints. Complete perimeter investigation, learning the layout, identifying the entry point, understanding what it was dealing with, then retreat, back uphill, same direction it came from, not fleeing, not running. The stride length remained consistent, 6-foot intervals, controlled departure. It left because it chose to leave, not because something scared it away. He studied those tracks for 40 minutes, took plaster casts of the 3 clearest impressions, documented everything with photographs and measurements and detailed notes. Then he packed his gear, broke camp, hiked 14 miles back to his vehicle without stopping. His reflection came later, after the adrenaline faded, after his heart rate returned to baseline, after he could think clearly about what the evidence meant. It wasn't hunting me, it was studying me, learning. That's somehow worse than being prey. Prey gets eaten and it's over, but being studied means it's gathering information, planning, and it knows where I was, what I smell like, how I react when I'm afraid. That knowledge doesn't go away. The tracks proved something massive and bipedal had approached his tent. The hand impression proved it touched the barrier. The audio proved it stood there breathing for 20 minutes while he lay paralyzed 3 feet away. But none of that evidence answers the question that matters most. Why didn't it attack? Remember that subsonic frequency spike, the one his recorder captured 3 minutes before he consciously registered the breathing, the one that sent his heart rate from 68 to 142 beats per minute while he was still asleep. That wasn't random. That was a weapon. Infrasound below 20 Hz bypasses your conscious hearing entirely. It vibrates your organs directly, your lungs, your heart, the fluid in your inner ear. Your body registers the threat before your brain can form a coherent thought about what's happening. Studies document the symptoms at 6 to 16 Hz exposure: chest pressure, difficulty breathing, nausea that comes in waves, anxiety with no identifiable source. The overwhelming sense that something is terribly wrong even when your eyes see nothing threatening. 22% of exposed populations report significant discomfort from infrasound at just 10 decibels above baseline. His exposure measured 15 decibels above ambient for 11 minutes. His body was under sustained attack by a frequency designed to freeze prey in place. This explains why he couldn't move, why his muscles refused to respond despite his mind screaming to grab the bear spray. His body took over and made the choice for him. It chose to freeze instead of fighting or running. That split-second instinct likely saved his life. Here's what matters for anyone who spends time in the backcountry. Your body has a threat detection system that operates below conscious awareness. You need to learn to recognize when it's activated. Recall the Oz effect we discussed earlier. That total auditory void is your first warning. No insects, no birds, no rustling in the underbrush. Silence means something big enough to command respect has entered the area. You have minutes, not hours. Minutes to decide whether to stay put or retreat while you still can. Chest pressure is your second warning. That feeling of weight on your sternum without any physical contact, like the air itself is pressing down on you. That's not anxiety. That's not your imagination. That's infrasound vibrating your chest cavity. Something with massive lung capacity is close enough to generate subsonic frequencies your body can detect. Nausea is your third warning. Sudden waves of sickness that have no medical explanation. You weren't sick 5 minutes ago. You didn't eat anything bad, but now your stomach is churning and you feel like you might vomit. That's your inner ear fluid responding to frequencies below 20 hertz. That's your body telling you to leave. Now, if you experience all three simultaneously in the wilderness, you're being watched by something that knows how to use biology as intimidation. Something that understands how to paralyze prey before revealing its position. The standard wilderness survival advice doesn't apply here. Making yourself loud won't help. Black bears flee from noise. Mountain lions back down when you maintain eye contact and make yourself large. But something generating infrasound as a tactical weapon isn't following predator rules you learned in ranger training. Your best response is calculated stillness. Control your breathing. Slow your heart rate as much as possible. Don't make eye contact, even if you see movement through tent mesh. Don't grab for bear spray or a flashlight. Those actions signal threat. An escalation from investigation to aggression happens in seconds. Here's the survival secret that separates those who walk away from those who get chased. 14 documented cases since 2019 follow this exact pattern. Oz effect. Infrasound symptoms. Prolonged tent investigation. The outcome splits based on a single decision. The witnesses who stayed still, who controlled their breathing, who didn't reach for weapons or lights. They survived without injury. Every single one. The creature investigated for an average of 8 to 15 minutes, then departed, non-aggressive, no forced entry, no physical contact beyond touching the tent fabric. The ones who panicked, who grabbed flashlights and flooded the tent, who unzipped doors and ran. They got pursued, distances exceeding half a mile, through dense forest, in total darkness. The creature didn't attack during these pursuits. It followed, matched their pace, stayed just close enough that they could hear it crashing through the underbrush behind them. Then it broke off, every time. Once the witness stopped running and froze in place, the pursuit ended. This goes against every Ranger 101 rule we've been taught. Do you agree that stillness is the best survival strategy, or do you think this witness just got lucky? Let's talk about it below. This isn't luck. This is strategic survival based on understanding what you're dealing with, something that investigates but doesn't automatically attack, something that responds to threat signals, something that pursues runners but leaves still targets alone, something intelligent enough to use subsonic frequencies, something patient enough to investigate for 11 minutes without forcing entry, something that left because it chose to leave. Not because anything scared it away. Staying still isn't surrender. It's calculated survival. The witness from Monongahela National Forest survived because his military training overrode his panic response. but his nervous system hasn't recovered. He still wakes at night listening for breathing that shouldn't be there. His body remembers the threat at a cellular level, the kind of memory that doesn't fade with time. He's back in the city now, but he doesn't sleep through the night. Every time the house settles or a branch brushes against a window, his body is back in that tent. He realized that the woods didn't just take his peace of mind. They replaced it with a permanent awareness that we are never as alone as we think we are. That's the cost of these encounters, even when they end without physical contact. Even when you walk away uninjured, your threat detection system remains locked in hypervigilance mode, scanning for frequencies you can't consciously hear, waiting for silence that means you're being watched again. The subsonic frequency attack wasn't accidental. The chest pressure wasn't psychological, the paralysis wasn't cowardice. His body was reading signals his conscious mind couldn't process. And those same signals are being generated in wilderness areas across North America right now. In places where the Oz effect descends without warning, where campers wake to pressure they can't explain, where something massive stands 6 inches from tent fabric and breathes with the patience of a predator that knows exactly what it's doing. Learn to recognize the biological warnings. Oz effect silence, chest pressure without contact, nausea with no medical cause. Your body is equipped with threat detection systems millions of years old. Trust them, because the next investigation reveals what happens when those warning signs get ignored. We're heading to the Sierra Nevada to examine thermal signatures that defy every known law of biology. Click the video on your screen now to see the footage that changed everything we thought we knew about these predators. And in the wilderness, belief is optional, survival isn't.